Welcome to the party. I'm not here right now, but I want you to listen very carefully. These guys are very funny, so pay attention. Enough talk. It's showtime.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bags of Action. My name is Pete, and this time round I have a very special guest co-presenter, Dan Marshall.
What? I feel like I'm slowly but surely becoming part of the Bags of Action team.
That's the plan. Covert.
Is that what you're doing, is it?
Yeah, there was like the Expendables of podcasting.
Oh, see, now I'm excited about that.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're Chuck Norris. I think so.
Okay. I think I've only seen the first Expendables, and I didn't get all the way through it. I don't know if that disqualifies me from
it's fine.
appearing on the podcast again.
I've seen all three of them, and I'm not that. I don't mind the second one, but overall, I'm not a massive fan. But we're not here to talk about Expendables this time.
Oh, really? What are we here to talk about?
This segue. We're here to talk about a film called VFW from 2019.
Is it really that? I didn't realise it was from last year, because it's only just come onto Netflix.
But it wasn't a Netflix movie. I think it had a small cinema run, and then this is its kind of modern day version of coming out on DVD or whatever.
Oh, because no one can go down the shops and buy DVDs anymore.
Not anymore.
Actually, are you a DVD man, Pete, or are you Blu-ray?
Blu-ray. I can't watch SD anymore.
Nah, mate, yeah,
not through choice. Not through choice. If I've got an old film that I've got on SD, I will put it in the Blu-ray player and hold my nose. But if I've got the option, if it's available, I've rebought a lot of stuff on Blu-ray just to rewatch them. So yeah,
I pretty much replaced everything. I don't know if we can I'm just hijacking this. We're talking about modern day format. But I've got stuff on DVD which you can't get on Blu-ray, like New Jack City, Midnight Run. I've got Colour of Money. Like, I can't find the Blu-rays of those anywhere. Well, Thanksgiving Denver When You're Dead.
I love that film. We're going to have to get you back on to talk about Midnight Run, because we've realised yesterday that neither me or Steve have seen that film.
Are you joking?
No, I'm making a genuine fact.
It's like Yaphet Kotto's Finest Hour.
We watched the trailer yesterday together, and we were both like, Yaphet Kotto, Joe Pantoliano. It's almost like a dream cast.
To me, like Joey Pants is pretty much. It's funny it'd be really interesting actually for you to see it, because when I watch Bad Boys, I think it's Joey Pants reprising his role from Midnight Run, whereas for you, it'd be interesting, like retrospectively, to see if actually it is or not.
Have you seen Bad Boys for Life yet?
What you gonna do? No, I haven't. Any good?
Okay. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
I think it's really, really good. I've seen it twice.
Boom.
Yeah.
I didn't like Bad Boys 2, but it's not Bay, is it?
No, it's not Bay, although he does make a cameo in it.
Shut the front door.
No, it's fact. I've just ruined that.
Does he blow anything up?
Does he blow anyone off?
Does he blow anything up? Does he blow anyone off?
No.
Is there any blowing?
No, he attends a wedding.
Oh.
That's all I can say.
Okay.
But I don't know. It feels like there's a homage to him in terms of how it's filmed, but it's very now. I thought it was really good. I've seen it twice, but
is it more like the first one?
Yeah, it's more like the first one, but it does a really good thing of going, these characters well, and we're going to lean into that. We're going to lean into the fact the audience has already kind of bought into these people and what we can do with that and the existing relationships. I think it's really strong. Yeah,
that's good. Because that is why you watch Bad Boys. You watch Bad Boys to see them too, don't you? You don't go to see like a reinvention of the action genre. No, it's like you just want to see those two fucking about. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah. Totally.
Sorry, should have checked that. Okay, yeah, no, I'll check that out because I think the first one, I think it's still got loads of charm. I know you haven't invited me on to talk about the Bad Boys Legacy, but we're here now. What do you think of VFW? No, I'm not talking about that. Bad Boys and the death of DVD.
It was a trick. He said we're all in lockdown. He just wanted to catch up. We did an episode, I think, on Bad Boys, and rewatching it, I think
Did you say what you're gonna do?
I think we did.
Did you both break into the song?
Yeah. Which one of us is which, by the way?
Oh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one.
You don't have to answer that on mic.
No,
Larry.
No one wants to be Martin Lawrence today, really. He's the comedy relief, but it's not who you want to be.
Yeah, that's true. I think we all think we're Mike Lowry, and we're all
Martin Lawrence.
Martin Lawrence's character. I think.
Yeah, it's like we all think we're Tony, but really we're all happy, aren't we?
It's true. It's true. It's I like to think I'm Rocky. I'm actually Paulie. Anyway,
you could be Adrian, so it could be worse.
That's true. That is true. So, should we talk about this film?
Yeah. What film is it again?
It's VFW.
Okay.
From
Which came out in
2019. Yeah.
Yes.
I should give a short IMDb based premise, which is.
Are you going to do it like trailer?
I can do it. Do you want me to do it like a trailer? I can do that. As you're a special guest, I have to do whatever you say. So yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
A group of war veterans must defend the local VFW post and an innocent teen against a deranged drug dealer and his relentless army of punk mutants in VFW.
That was.
There you go.
Yeah, you stirred my lungs a bit then.
Nice.
Yeah, that was
nice.
Do you do that on every episode?
No, never done it before. Probably won't be allowed to do it again because.
What do you mean not allowed?
Well, the boss will be back next month, won't he?
Oh, I'll tweet in or something. You got Twitter?
We do have Twitter.
All right, I'm gonna say like Pete needs to do Trailer Man voice every episode. Or description.
I have found out that Steve does a very good Barry White impression, so I want to try and get that on the show somehow.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah. Dark horse.
Ah. Okay.
So anyway, had you heard of this film before you saw it?
No, it popped up. I didn't even know it was made in 2019. You just said it popped up on my Netflix, and because it had Stephen Lang in the trailer, I was like, right, I'm just going to add that to the list. And then I think one of you mentioned it?
It was me.
I don't know. It was you, was it?
Yeah.
Did you tell me about it, and then I watched the trailer?
I posted the trailer on our WhatsApp group.
No, so until you posted the trailer, I didn't. Sorry, and then I watched it. Yeah.
So someone I know.
Sorry, Pete. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's fine.
I'm making a hash of your podcast.
Let's not do this in public. I'll speak to you after. So the guy we had on an episode before wrote the book Born to Be Bad, and he's always posting really interesting stuff about action movie stuff. And he posted the trailer, and I thought, well, how did I not know this film existed? So I shared it with you guys, and I think we all one by one watched it. But I was quite surprised because now that Netflix does its top 10, which I think is a weird thing, but it does it's like top 10 movies, top 10 TV shows, top 10 combination. It was like number 3 movie. I think it's just, I guess people are so desperate for content right now because of what's going on that I was quite surprised that a film like this was that popular, or that, I say popular, I don't suppose you know how much people liked it, but was getting that many views really, because it's directed by a guy called Joe Begos, who I'd never heard of before. He's done indie films Bliss and Almost Human.
A load of shorts.
Yeah.
So I think like you don't know. I know that like Netflix are really data driven. Like a lot of decisions they make are based on how many people have watched it, how many people watch so many episodes and haven't gone back, or how many people watch so much of a certain amount of content and then switch it off, and that's why a lot of stuff gets cancelled. It feels a bit arbitrary sometimes, but that's why all the decisions based on that. So I don't know how many people switch this on. I didn't see it all the way through, but that gets it into number 3. Yeah. Now, I know we do the ratings at the end, but make no mistake for anyone that's listening, my surprise is not because I think it's a bad film. I loved this. And
if you haven't, this is what
Go on.
This is one of those ones, because we tend to spoil like crazy. I wouldn't use this as an episode to judge whether to watch it or not. I would suggest you go and watch it and then head back to see what we have to say, because we're going to probably talk all through it.
Maybe listen for a bit and we'll do like the round bit and then we'll get to some detail. Because I think if you're umming and ahhing about it, I think there's some things that I would say if you have similar tastes to me, I think it might tip it over. So I mean, one thing you don't get from the trailer is all the brilliant people in it. So we said about Stephen Lang, William Sadler, who was like the villain in Die Hard 2, the Grim Reaper in Bill and Ted, Fred Williamson, NFL star turned actor,
Delta Force Commando back in the day he was in as well.
See, that I've not seen. It even had Cliff from Cheers in it.
Which is a great, because it is set in a VFW stands for Veterans of Foreign War, so it's set in a bar. Now I thought when he popped up, he was obviously from Cheers and Fletch. I thought he was just going to sit in the bar, make a few lines, and then leave. I thought that was the joke, so do a Cheers thing. But then he does stick around for a reasonable portion of this movie. Martin Coe from the Karate Kid movies and the second Rambo.
He popped up. I was like, "Are you joking?" That's a brilliant, brilliant choice.
And you got other people like David Patrick Kelly from The Crow and Last Man Standing.
Warriors.
And Warriors, of course. Tom Williamson from All Cheerleaders Die and Five Piece.
I didn't know him.
Yeah. Travis Hammer from Godless. Have you seen Godless, TV series Godless?
Yes. Is that what he was from? I couldn't place it.
And he's in Ray Donovan as well, and also Independence Day Resurgence, which I haven't seen.
I don't think I've got far enough into Ray Donovan to have seen him yet.
Okay.
But Godless he was really good in. But I think like if you base it, and I'll go into a little bit more detail without spoiling anything in a sec, but I think like just that, what we just talked about, says everything about this movie, because what I loved about this film is it leans into tropes without using them as a crutch or an excuse. You know how some films sometimes, like action movie, you get this quite a lot, where they're like, we're doing this, like The Mummy does it, where it's like, we're having a bit of fun with it, so don't take us too seriously. It's almost like an excuse in case it's a little bit rubbish. Whereas with this, it's like, right, what we're going to do, like, we are fully committed to this being like an 80s dirty siege movie. Yeah.
I mean, it's got that blue and red kind of sheen to it, almost to the lighting or cinematography or the grade. It really reminded me of a lot of films I watched in the late 80s. Like my parents would have gone out or gone to bed early, and I've chucked on a VHS I've rented from the local video shop, or should I say my nan has rented for me, which is usually the case. As always. And then you chuck it in, it probably got like Wings Hauser in it, or a Gary Busey film that he actually stars in rather than is the secondary. So it reminded us of a film I used to love called Class of 1999, which this reminded me a little bit of as well. But I think you're right. It wears his heart on his sleeve, and it's not a lot of the kind of the trend at the moment of let's do something that's like the 80s with like synthwave music and whatever is a little bit tongue in cheek, like you say, and almost like very knowing and very kind of winky, but this doesn't feel like that. And funny enough, we mentioned Expendables, and like this is the kind of thing I'd rather something like that. Is if you're going to get these older character actors back to do something like this, do something that's really interesting and unique, not just shouting out a load of stock catchphrases.
Well, I think that's the thing. Like you nailed it there, where you're talking about. It's all very winky, and the reason being is because I don't think those people understand it. Maybe they'd watched like Breakfast Club and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, well I understand. This guy totally gets it, because I think like you talking about like the film stock and stuff. I'd seen the trailer, I didn't really know who was in it. We've gone through the list, but apart from like the main character, but the second it started, and it's going to seem like an odd comparison, but I felt kind of relieved. But I was like, I really like films that are quite grainy. Yeah. So when it came on and you had kind of like the synth music and stuff, but it wasn't played out synth music. It was like a little bit foreboding, but it was like down in the mix. So you could, like, it was just a feeling. It's not telegraphed or anything.
A little bit John Carpenter. Fred Williams in the car. 100%. 100%. And I was watching, I was like, I've got a really good feeling about this in the same way I did in Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. Yeah.
I was like, okay, right, you're not reinventing anything here, but you're also not being lazy. It's almost like a love letter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, although I think you'd have a tough time arguing that it's original, I haven't seen something like this done so well for a long, long time. Probably the only things that are as good as this done in that way are the progenitors.
Yeah, because like people have compared it to Hobo with a Shotgun, but I wasn't as keen on that.
Is that the Roger Hatterall one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I vaguely remember it.
Yeah. But I had that same thing. It's really weird, like that kind of almost a visceral feeling about a film within about 2 minutes. I thought I have a really strong feeling I'm going to really like this film.
Yeah, I was exactly the same.
I'm in the right mind frame. I've picked it up, put it on because I've seen the trailer. And it again, this isn't spoilery yet, but it might spoil the end for us in terms of scores. But it's like and it did. It's not. There's no great surprises in this film. However, it just does exactly the right things that it needs to do. I can't really say that very clearly, but it's exactly the right film. They made the film they wanted to make in the right way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it's the same way. I think if you watch Assault on Precinct 13, right?
Yeah,
it's an obvious comparison. But if you make someone watch Assault on Precinct 13 that had seen Rio Bravo, it's not the same movie. Do you know what I mean? The beats are the same.
Yeah,
but it's not the same movie. And I think with this, it's not Assault on Precinct 13. But it knows what it is, and you can draw the comparisons, and the beats are the same.
Yeah,
but it's not that movie. Do you know what I mean? Redressed in a different setting.
Because at first I thought, well, hang on, musically it sounds like John Carpenter. Some of the dialogue feels like John Carpenter. The cinematography feels like John. And I thought, is it just going to be? Is it basically just a John Carpenter love letter, like you said? But I think it's more than there's other even things like Dusk Till Dawn. It does tread similar ground to this. Near Dark does. The kind of stuck in a bar with an outside force coming to get you is not a particularly new thing. But that helps. I think that helps make it feel like an 80s movie.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you've got guys that are it's why I like. Have you seen Green Room?
I adore that film. Yes.
So it's in the same way of it's a siege movie, but in the same way you're like, what's interesting now is these people. Obviously, they've got the know-how and they're tough, but it's not like you've got a bunch of soldiers. With Green Room, it's a band. You're like, right. The interesting thing about this is they're not people that you would expect to fight their way out. This is going to be knuckle and brawling.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because I think from seeing the trailer, I thought, I love the kind of subgenre of old guys getting drawn back into violence, like something like Red or Unforgiven, which I rewatched recently, or John Wick. But I also like the fact that this wasn't people that had these kind of almost superhuman abilities to do what they could do. They were just guys that just didn't take any shit, and they were soldiers, and because they were older, they had less to lose apart from each other. What is it, Veterans of Foreign Wars thing. I thought they were going to lean into that a lot more, and I'm glad they didn't too much. It was just, I like the fact it was just a premise of why these people are in this bar. And what
I didn't want it to get like MacGyver. And it doesn't, thankfully. It's, And
I like the fact, I thought the idea of it being, which character's birthday was it? Stephen Lang's character, wasn't it? Who's the barman? It's his birthday, so they're staying after hours, and I kind of liked that. It did the self-contained thing, but there was a good story reason for them to still be in the bar, and I think having the younger girl, she's played by Sierra McCormick, who's in The Vast of Night recently, that was on Amazon, and Pretty Little Stalker. I knew her from a kid. She's an ex-Disney TV person, so I knew her from kind of a show called Ant Farm. So it's a bit weird to see her in something like this, but.
She was kind of like my only problem with this, because I just it was nothing. I'm guessing there was nothing on the page. There was a point where I was like, you don't even have to be here anymore. You're not adding anything to it. There's nothing it says in the description that they're protecting her, but are they really? Because she just turns up. They're really saving the place in themselves against these hordes, but. She doesn't. It's really benign.
I know what you mean. There was a part of me that thought have they kind of done this and gone, oh, do you know what would be a nice thing to do is kind of get the two younger characters, give them a little bit more to do. But then part of me thought maybe the intention, I don't know, they could have been slightly tacked on to make it not just an old guys in a bar movie. I don't know, you potentially could have removed the two younger characters and it could have still worked as a film.
Yeah, completely. It could have just been a siege movie with the old guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's billed as an action horror, which I think is mainly just to the fact it's pretty gory, you know, and obviously they're supposed to be mutants attacking, lots of interesting extras and stuntmen walking around. And I guess
the mutants thing I didn't get at all. It's just people on drugs, isn't it?
Yeah.
On this new drug.
Yeah, it didn't. That could have been removed. And it could have still worked.
They've missold that, Pete, I think.
Yeah.
Someone's going to get a strongly worded email from me. I'm going to be like, the subject heading is going to be where the mutants at.
Yeah. Yeah, because like the girl that I don't know if they just wanted to lean into those kind of other movies, like make it more of an exploitation thing, because it does feel a little bit like exploitation cinema.
100%.
And some of the gore is pretty impressively intense.
Yeah, it proper gets into that. And I didn't... Almost to the point of, like, it's a bit of, towards the end, it gets a bit silly. Yeah. But I think at that point, you're along for the ride, but you're so in the mode of what that film is and what it's doing. When it gets to that point, you're just like, yeah, whatever, I'm along for the ride now.
And I think that's what you said before. It helps that they stuck with a tone. They didn't do this bit's going to be really funny and this bit's going to be a lot darker. There are humorous moments to it, but it's quite dark humour. But I think it maintains its own world and its own kind of set of rules and values really well. Yeah,
the humour is the characters, isn't it? Yeah. It's all from them.
Yeah, and I love the fact it's old mates that know each other for a long time, and it doesn't mean they always get on. Like Martin Coe's character's a bit of a dick, which... Yeah,
he is a bit.
He's very good at playing characters that are a bit of a dick.
To be fair.
Yeah, but then you find he's a car dealer and he's got a different approach to stuff and he'd happily shoot the girl if need be. But I like the fact that they disagreed, but they're still friends. Because the obvious thing to do was that there's a rift between them about what to do, but it was like, again, maybe we're about to go into spoiler territory now.
Let's spoil it. Let's get it under the hood.
Yeah, so if you've seen this film, if you haven't seen the film, maybe dip off. It's only about 1.5 hours long. Watch it quickly, come straight back. He does get a redemption thing, but it's not laboured. It could have been that kind of big thing of like, I was an arsehole, but now I'm not. It wasn't really that. It was just for a film like this, you assume everyone's going to be one-dimensional character. But actually, he was someone where you go, well, I don't agree with that thing that he's just said, but actually he's doing quite a good thing here, which is what real people are like. Which I really like in films. I don't like it when it's kind of, you can just feel the scripting, if you know what I mean, of like, well, this is the point, he's going to be redeemed because he needs to be, because that's how stories work. This was it felt much more organic.
And it's not, I think the two things I would speak to there, like the first thing is like, it's not an absolute redemption.
No.
It's just like, you're like, okay, maybe you're not as bad as my disagreement of what you're doing would be. But also I think, you're talking about like when the script is like telegraphing it to you, a bit like, I would akin it to The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Windows and Fuchs, I don't know how many pages of dialogue they've got in that movie, but because of how they interact and people interact with them, you get a really good idea of what they're about. Like when Fuchs confides in Macready, you get an idea of like what their relationship is that you haven't seen, and that's what they do really well in VFW.
Yeah,
like the exchanges that they have.
Yeah,
you get that some of them are closer than others, and you get what's the Grim Reaper's name?
William Sadler's.
Yeah, like his relationship with Fred is a bit more like Reacher. Do you know what I mean? He's like Walter kind of wants that reassurance and that kind of what's the word when you he wants that currency, whereas like Abe, it's really natural between them.
Yeah. And I think that also makes sense of them being in the military in a way, because they would have had to have different either ranks but different relationships built around what they were doing together. And some of them knew each other better than others. But I also like the fact it's almost like I got the feeling almost Martin Coe's character, he does turn up there, but they kind of put up with him. But actually, they want him closer because it's the guy. I think the idea of it being someone's birthday was really clever because it gave a reason for them all to be together, but also just to spend more time together. Because if it was a normal night out and someone was doing your head in, even before mutants started to try and kill you, you'd probably just go, oh, I'm going to call it a night. But because they were trying to take him to a strip club, although that was a bit weird, to meet the daughter of the woman he was with in Vietnam, which I thought was funny. That element to it just gave them a reason to kind of
and for the
have to put up with each other. Then obviously, and then the situation obviously meant actually, this is life and death now, so we're all sticking around. But I thought it was it could have been over egged. The birthday bit could have been made too much of. I don't know. I was really impressed with the performances in this movie, which again, for a film that a lot of people would think of as throwaway, I think the casting was really good. But I think Stephen Lang, Fred Williamson, and William Sandler, but in particular William Sandler, I don't think he's been better in a movie. I just thought he was superb in this role.
Yeah, it was nice to see him that kind of that needy, kind of vulnerable character. I've not seen him do that before. Because he even turns up in that. Did you see the other Netflix movie, Highwayman, with Woody Harrelson and Kevin Costner?
No, I haven't seen that.
Because he turns up in that, right? And he is, because they're chasing Bonnie and Clyde, and William Sadler is Clyde's dad.
Okay.
And there's this one scene, like he's not got a prominent role in this one scene where Kevin Costner turns up and they're having this conversation. And it's all about, the whole scene is all about what they're not saying. And what William Sadler's basically saying to Kevin Costner is like, right, he wasn't always this way, but at some point he's gone down this path. Obviously, he's my son, but I don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to think about my son in this way anymore. And the only way that can happen is if you catch him and kill him. Now, he never says that at any point. But the way that he plays it, I was like, you get that sometimes. He's really underused, like brilliant people. I think like that happened to Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
In like the early 2000s, like he'd pop up and stuff and you'd be like, why isn't this guy doing more work?
Yeah, that makes sense. No, it's really good. I mean, like Stephen Lang, I just finally started watching Into the Badlands and he's popped up in that.
Yes, he's really good in that, actually. I haven't finished that, I need to go back to it, but because I'd only ever seen him in Avatar, and I just like some people are so good at playing a dick. Yeah, you don't like them, but you don't really realise it's the character. And Into the Badlands, I think, was the second thing I saw him in, and I was like, oh, fair play, it's completely different. And then I saw him. What's the movie? Again, it's a siege movie, but they're locked in, and he's blind. They rob his house.
Oh, I don't know.
Have you not seen that?
I don't think so. It doesn't ring a bell.
So it is. He's blind, and it's like in this rundown neighborhood. It's almost like he's got the only house. Don't Breathe, it's called.
Okay.
And basically, this couple break into his house because they think he's got loads of money. It's the only house in like this rundown neighborhood, but he's a blind guy. I can't spoil it because the movie's all about how it unfolds. But basically, he's blind. They rob him, and he locks the place down. And he's after them, but he's blind. Sounds absurd, but it's brilliant. And where it goes is dark. But the point is, like, I saw him in that, and I'm like, in VFW, I think as good as everybody is, without him, it kind of falls apart. He carries it.
He's the heart of it. I mean, I'm watching it and thinking, yeah, I'd quite like you to serve me a beer, which sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but you know what I mean?
No,
like,
he's just good.
I'd like you to be. Yeah, he's always he's watching out for everybody there. He's doing what a good barman does. He's reading the room, and it's really good. Funny, I just typed in the name of that film that you just mentioned, and the first search term is the guy in Don't Breathe really blind? So he must have done a good job. He must have done a good performance.
He is brilliant in it. You should check. You should even do an episode on it. It's that good.
Okay.
But yeah, the point is like he is. Like this is how good he is at playing the character, and everything that you've just seen and speak to that. He holds it all together. The second you see him in the car, the conversations with Fred Williamson, you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I really like you.
Yeah. And there's an element of kind of, as it goes on, you think that more people are going to die. And like people like William Sellers character, like, I really like you, but if you die, it'll kind of be a noble death and it's like the end of your life and whatever. But I didn't want Stephen Lang to die at any. I was quite protective over his character because he had that kind of. I don't know if it's because I've just seen him in less things. There was like a freshness to his performance.
It's because the writing's good and he plays it really well. If you don't care about people, where's the peril?
Yeah. The mad thing is, because there's so many films we see that are written by people who've written, loads of movies. This is written by a guy called Max Brailer. He'd written this and one short film called The Last Kids on Earth, and co-written by someone called Matthew McArdle, who has no writing credits at all. Obviously, they could have written stuff that hasn't been made, but for me, for a film like this, I think it's really deftly written because there's some great kind of interplay between the characters that also feels slightly out of time, but it feels right between those characters. And again, it elevated genre is a big thing people talk about a lot, and that's what this is to me. It's like it's a schlocky kind of bloodthirsty siege movie, but it's also like a really kind of almost dignified film about these people.
Yeah, I get that.
But yeah, I mean, I think the casting was perfect. And I say it wasn't like a Kung Fury kind of we know what the 80s is like, ha ha ha, aren't we clever kind of thing, which I still like. But this is much more of a we're just going to make a film like those films.
I think it's more a case of the impression. I mean, obviously neither of us are on set or anything, so I don't want to be presumptuous. But when you watch it, it's almost like they say, like, we've got this really good siege movie. Let's do it like that. Let's do everything we can to just like do it in that way, that stuff that we love. And I think, like we both mentioned, what they don't do is do it in a way where it's like, if it's a bit shit, we're doing that. They're like, we're gonna make that, and we're gonna make it as true as we can to all the things that we love about those kind of movies, without being lazy. Which I think, again, is why the Dawn of the Dead remake was so good. Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. It was like, well, you're doing it, but you're not making any excuses for yourself. And lives and dies on that, then,
I think it's like you said. I think the fact it's not like a big studio picture. I think it was Fangoria that. I think the fact they didn't have that kind of pressure meant they could just commit to it and really this is the kind of film we're going to make, and then that's what they did really. So should we talk about some of the kind of action set pieces and things?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people get hit in the head or chopped in the head or chainsawed in the head. They obviously had somebody that was very good at making like heads explode. And there's some really brutal kind of smashing heads in kind of moments. It does feel like, and maybe that could even be why they made them mutants. I know there's kind of a whole thing with like ratings. If you make them mutants or robots then you're not killing real people, so you get a slightly lower age rating. Although this felt like from a UK perspective, this felt like an 18 that you probably didn't want your mum to see, so you brought it into the house,
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think it was really well handled. It wasn't particularly showy. It had that kind of feeling of real violence where it's really not very nice, but you've got to do it sometimes.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Like about the horror stuff, it's more like it's the gore, isn't it? And it, they fully commit to the 80s stuff. So I mean, it's I suppose the gore reminds me a lot of like Halloween.
Yeah.
It was like, right, that's, especially I think the further along you get, they up the ante and they're like, okay, right, we're going to see it. There's going to be, I think you start off with like wooden planks with nails in it, and then you get promoted then to kind of chainsaws and stuff towards the end. And they're like, right, we're going to watch this. And it's not like, irreversible, where it's grotesque. I think they, in order to allow you to kind of, they do it with a little bit of fun. I think there's a charm to it rather than trying to make it funny. Yeah,
exactly. Like, there's nothing worse than someone trying to make something like that funny, but some of it is naturally funny, just with dark humour of the situation and what happens and people's reactions, or somebody just hitting somebody one too many times.
That's exactly it. It's the reactions. That's what and you need that. In a movie like this, you want to be let off the hook a little bit. So if someone like says something or does something a little bit, it just allows that tension to go a little bit before they build it back up. Or, you know, it's just an onslaught then, and it's just a horrible experience if it's nothing but that.
And a lot of films, I think particularly more modern films, sometimes when they get into these kind of big moments or the more horrific stuff, they lose sight of the characters because they're just like showing you that kind of side of things they want you to see. But what I liked about it is like, because it was about reactions or like what someone kind of looking like, I can't believe they just did that, or whoa, you know, that person's really lost it. I really like that because every scene had some kind of character weight to it, even if it is someone being hit in the head with a baseball bat with spikes in until their head explodes. It still had a story purpose or a relationship purpose, which again, it made me think. Well, it just made me think like, I did sound like a really old man, but like, I was just like, they don't make films like this anymore, but I wish they made more films like this. And it's not necessarily about it being 80s or more gory or more old school. It's about making stories where, yes, it's a genre film. Yes, it could be seen as completely and utterly disposable, but actually, you've got to get your audience to invest in the people you're watching. And that's something I think is something that I genuinely think in the bigger films is often lost, but I think here, I it does make you root for these people. Sorry, I interrupted you before.
No, I interrupted you. I was just going to say it. Like, I would love to say that I was clever enough to have picked that up while I watched it, but it's a really good point. What you're saying about like a lot of the action moments or set pieces, and there's a character drive to it, and it's a really good point. And I think there's one. Do you know where Stephen Lang character goes out to the truck and the girl is in the back? And it's the first time you kind of see him a bit like, not fuck up, but a bit like, right, you haven't anticipated that. Like the situation's kind of got ahead of you a little bit. And she like gets him in a headlock over the back. She sat in the back, so she's like got him in a headlock through the window. And then Stephen Saller's character turns up then. And there's like this moment between them where they're not like backslapping or anything. They're a bit like, fucking, we just about got through that through the skin of our teeth. And that's, you know, it's exciting, and there's the threat there, especially for him, because he's the main guy. He's the guy that you think would be untouchable in most action movies. And it's a really nice beat. It's a really good point you made there. I didn't think of it before.
And I think they don't. A lot of these films, say before, like these old people coming out of retirement, they suddenly, I say, have you watched Unforgiven? There's a moment when in Unforgiven where William Money kind of almost clicks back into his old persona. He walks taller. He carries himself differently because his friend has been killed. But in a way, I'm pleased that didn't happen here. I like the fact they're still the same people as at the start. They do have a particular set of skills because they were in the military, but a lot of it is just them desperately scrabbling around not to be killed, and to make sure that their friends survive, which I think is much more relatable than somebody who's a one-man army.
Yes, which I think is like it's got its place there. But I think it doesn't have the heart, to use your term, that this has. Like when it's one man army, it's just someone that's kind of invincible, and it's just about the ingenuity of him getting away with an insurmountable force. Whereas with this, it's about a bunch of people like barely holding it together.
Yeah, and it doesn't go. And it doesn't go the way you expect necessarily for each of the characters. Who dies first and all that kind of thing isn't that predictable, which helps in a way because there is, Stephen Lang's character is definitely the centerpiece of this, but the rest of them are very much an ensemble built around him. And there isn't like even if you rewatch Predator now, and obviously the order, but there's an element of kind of, you could, even if you didn't know it, you could work out kind of where it's always going to be on at the end, and you kind of know who's going to get, closer to the end. But I think with this, anything could happen really to any of these characters.
Yeah, 100%. And I think because like you never know when I've forgotten his name now, but the guy from the Warriors, obviously he's super injured, we're in spoiler territory now. You never know like at what point. I was constantly expecting them to go through like yet another siege and then turn around and he was gone, and that feeling that it would all be for nothing, like that constantly hangs over all the exchanges and all the set pieces.
Yeah, it does, and I think it drives a lot of the decisions that they make as well. Like, say, when Martin Coe's character kind of goes, which I like that bit as well, because there's an element of like, is he going to talk to them to save everybody, or is he going to talk to them to save himself? And I
genuinely thought it was he was going over, and he was just going to save his own ass.
Yeah, he did at the end kind of say, "I can make a deal." I like the fact that, again, because he's kind of used to be playing these. You see him playing these kind of larger than life, very confident characters. I like the fact he had to. I wasn't sure about it at first, but the fact he was psyching himself up by reciting his used car mantra, and the way he approached the negotiation, which was quite funny because he is the big man and going over there to talk to him, but he still had to get himself in the kind of the right mind frame.
Yeah.
Is there anything you didn't like particularly about the movie?
I didn't like that I felt like the bad, basically all the peripheral characters were they weren't very well served. And I don't know if, maybe they don't need to be in a film like this, but that I think where there's so much depth to, like, it's a really short movie and there's a lot of depth to the characters for what little you see them. And like for the bad guys, like the girl in it, you probably spend a bit more time, and the girl that's like the villain, like it's not the girl they're protecting. You probably spend a bit more time with her, or like maybe the director wants her to be a bit more, of a threat than any of the others. And I just didn't get that. I felt like they were really ill served. And then the main guy, the main villain, was kind of just like trademark. Like I wasn't frightened of him at all. I was just like, right, you're doing this. I feel like everything that you when you touched upon the fact that they're not just recycling stuff, he felt recycled.
Yeah, and I think in a way, because there's such a strong core of actors that are old timers, it makes it very difficult for everyone else in a way to live up to that kind of level of performance. But I do think you're right. I think writing wise they were underserved, but it kind of fell in the middle because I'd rather in a way they were just this unseen outside force of just these kind of relentless mutants you knew nothing about, and then it's just about the guys. Or you needed a bit more, because usually in this kind of film you'd be like almost quoting lines from the villain as much as you would the heroes, or there'd be some cool moment that they had as well, particularly in these old school movies. And there was some great, I forgot the name of the guy who plays Bennett in Commandos, also in Mad Max, him and like Lance Henriksen. There's people that just did amazing jobs in villain roles that just like own their scenes. But I think you're right,
because by the time they actually come into the VFW, I was like, I wasn't interested. It wasn't even that I wasn't invested. I was like, I couldn't care less. Now nothing you're going to say is I care so little about it that I'm not even really paying. I just want to get back to the other guys and find out whether or not they get away. But I think you're right. I think it might have played out better if maybe one of the crackheads was going to leave it in a toilet for someone else to pick up, and that's why they're under siege. And like the girl as well that they're protecting, quote unquote. Like again, she's another I could have done without her. There was just I didn't care. I was almost like I can't believe you guys are going through all of this for her. Yeah, there was no redeeming qualities about her at all.
No, I know what you mean. It's a lot of that was quite odd. I think, and it also stood out more because the other things were so good. Had this been a really schlocky film, it probably would have all fitted together okay. But I think because the central stuff worked so well, your expectations were those scenes were going to be as strong. And then they, like you say, I was almost like, just hurry up and come in until you can be killed.
Yeah,
I wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can get cerebral about it when you kind of pick it apart and talking about it. But I think subconsciously, every time she was, I was like, I couldn't even tell you that character's name.
No.
I was like, I just don't. I love all these boys, but they made so little of her character. She's almost just like a narrative device.
Yeah, I think you're right. To get the thing there and to make them want to try and. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, yes, I'm literally scratching my beard. Yeah, I think that was the weakest thing for me. I think the good thing, again, because it's a relatively short run time, that didn't get in the way too much. How did you feel about how the whole thing wrapped up? How the whole thing kind of came together?
In what, like specifically?
I guess who survived, who didn't survive, and how do you think everybody got their like fair share of what went on and their little moment in the sun, or?
Yeah, I think particularly like the Grim Reapers, I was like, you got a really good kind of ending there. I think some of them I felt like you've got to go, but it's not particularly inventive. All the fat is cut off this movie, so I don't think I think it was more you get a feeling of like, oh, that's a shame. If Fred Williamson makes it to the end, doesn't he? Yeah, so I was quite pleased about that.
And the two younger characters, I think, both survive. Yeah.
But again, I cared more about the soldier than I did about the girl. Yeah, sorry, the young guy, yeah.
And I like that. I like the fact he was someone they didn't know, and he'd come in there because of what it was, because it was the VFW, and that's, why he'd gone there, and the fact that he got to know them, or we got to know them through him a bit, and then the generational thing I thought was quite nice. So yeah, in a way, I almost wish they were protecting him, protecting like the young soldier than her character, really. And it's not because it's not a particularly. It's quite a macho kind of male skewed movie, I suppose, in a way. And I can kind of see where they might have used her for a bit of balance, but at the same time, I think you're right. I think she was one of the weaker things in the movie.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know if it was just they didn't concentrate on her enough, so she got very little direction. Again, I doubt there was very much on the page for her character anyway, but like she was just really bad. I feel like when she was on there, like everyone else was kind of doing their best, and she was just kind of like delivering these hard ass lines where you're a bit like, all right, I'm not really buying it. But I did like that they just kept taking shots all the way through the film. They're like, right, there's a lull now, everyone drink up, and then we'll crack on.
Yeah, no, it's pretty relentless within its runtime, I think.
But I love that it's like, I think this is one thing about movies nowadays that kind of like they're all so long, like, but I think a lot unnecessarily so, and it's really nice to watch a film that's just got all the fat cut off it, and it's just like, right, this is what it is. Sit down and watch it.
Is it 95 minutes, is it, or even shorter than that, maybe?
I think it's shorter. I think it did.
Yeah, might be under 90 minutes.
If it is, it's just over an hour and a half, if it is.
You tend to find that a lot more with indie movies, where they're trying to hit that 90 minutes or even slightly shorter.
But I think a lot of directors nowadays, like, I would love to see the likes of, like, Tarantino, for someone to be like, well, you're not going to get like the studio money. Here's a finite budget, and you've got to bring it in like an hour and 45 minutes, no longer. Like, I don't know if they could do it.
No, I think you're right. I know what you mean. It's almost like an indulgence in a way, because because films have got longer, and because if you're a director, people know and believe in, you're going to get that runtime. But it doesn't always help. And particularly in a film like this, which you don't need the backstory really of everybody. You just need a sense of their relationships with each other.
And that's why you get these character actors, that they're just that, right, you will get an idea of who they are and what they're about just because of what they're doing.
Yeah. And it's that age-old thing, isn't it? But, you get to know somebody by their actions, not just by what they say. And I think that's what it does here. The dialogue, I think, is really good, really strong. But at the same time, no one says too much. You haven't got that kind of those long laboured scenes of somebody giving you their life story or their motivation, or there's no exposition really in this
at all. Like, it never is like, right, let me explain to you what's going on in case you haven't got it. It's just like, right, you're away.
Yeah. So I think it feels like we've probably covered pretty much most things. Anything else you want to go through before we kind of give scores?
I think that's the lot.
Enough with the yak. What is your score?
So as the guest, that means you have to go first, and then I can copy you.
Okay.
So just give us your overview of the movie, what you thought about it, and then a number of bags out of 5, please.
My overview is it's like a throwback to really good, like, effective 80s siege movies. Like, it feels dirty. The titles jump. Did you notice that when they got like they flicker a little bit, which I thought was awesome. It's almost like it's in standard def, which I loved. I think we've covered a lot of it. I would give it a 4 out of 5. I think you have to be of the kind of mind like us where you want to see something like that. And I was surprised that it was what it was, but loved it for that. And the only reason I wouldn't give it a 5 is just because I think that there's not that it's disposable, but I don't know when I would go back and watch this again. I loved it for what it was, but I don't know if I'm going to be like, oh, do you know what? I really want to watch VFW.
Yeah. I think Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's super predictable, but in the best way. And it really scratched the itch I have for the kind of films that I used to watch. My old kind of VHS diet, like say Eye of the Tiger, Class of 1999, without me having to try and find out if they're available anymore, or buy a hooky copy from eBay that someone's tried to make upscaled, but actually is still in 4:3. We always say, they don't make them like this anymore, but they do. They made this film, and it isn't arch, it isn't tongue in cheek. It's a proper late night movie. The casting, I think, made a huge difference. You replace any of these central actors with somebody not quite to the same caliber, and it could have started to unpick itself, which we noticed obviously from the villains. I love the macho camaraderie, the old school aesthetic, the brutality. It's like the best kind of straight to video movie, but with bags of heart in amongst the gore. And that's what makes it better for me. I don't think it can give it a 5 because it's got to be like a stone cold classic. And I think when you're doing a film now that harkens back to other films, then they get the 5, but you can certainly have 4. So I think this is a very, very respectable 4 bags out of 5 for me as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So there you go. Well, thank you, Dan, for joining. I say joining us, but I'm one person, so for joining me, for joining us in the world of Bags of Action. And it sounds like we're going to have to do Midnight Run. We have to get you on for that. So.
Oh, I'd love that. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
Lovely.
It's been an honour, sir.
Well, thank you. So obviously, I did say no answer. No, it has been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. I was just psyching myself up for the ending because we're notoriously awful at ending this, and without Steve, it's going to be even worse because I can't even remember what I'm supposed to say. But there we are.
You're supposed to give out like contact details.
I think so. Yeah.
How would I, if I want to tweet you? How would I do that?
You would go onto Twitter.
Okay, and I would find you.
I think we're at Bags of Action. Okay. I can't remember. I think the email is bagsofaction@gmail.com.
Cool.
If you want to. We are on YouTube, of course. You may even be listening to this on YouTube, and as well as these longer episodes, we do weekly 5-minute reviews. Originally, this was going to be a 5-minute review, but we saw it and thought it was definitely deserving of far more than just a cursory glance. So thank you for listening. If indeed you still are, good night.
How do I listen and subscribe to the podcast?
You can all the usual podcast channels or YouTube. But if you're on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, but also hit that bell to get notifications.
Yeah, share, and subscribe.
Yeah. Good night.
Night.
You have been listening to Bags of Action. No bullshit. You'd better stick around for the next episode, because if you're lying, I'll be back.